Good information leads to good decision making. We're talking about the components of a pastoral dashboard today on the Church Revitalization Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the MalphursGroup team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and AJ Matthew.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, AJ Matthew.
That's me.
AJ, glad to have you. You can just punch it. Just kind of get straight to the facts. I'm always surprised. Work with a lot of churches. And a lot of the pastors, they often don't know things that you would assume to be fairly basic things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's attendance been like? Well, you seen this? Well, I think that, they're guessing.
The good news is, quick aside, it's been a while since anybody has given me pre-COVID, post-COVID.
I still hear it. I still hear it from time to time. It's been 2 years.
Maybe we'll get away from that at some point.
Yeah, you are what you are at this point, guys. But it's just like, I think that maybe it was not that that's the end all be all statistic, but it's kind of fundamental. I mean, it would be a little bit like, this is not exactly a facsimile, but if I were to say, what do you weigh? Now, you'd never ask someone this, but most people know within a few pounds of where they're at. And if you were like, well, I think I might be, you'd go, you should know that. Like, that's something that you should know. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Is weight the end all be all?
It's either not knowing or an avoidance technique.
That's okay. That's actually what I'm getting at. It's like that you don't know that. That tells me something. Like, that's indicative of some other problem. Like, knowing your weight is not the end all be all. The fact that you don't know it or you're avoiding knowing it might be an indicator that you know something's not good and you just don't want to know.
Yeah.
And when the same's true with attendance. Like, attendance isn't the end all be all metric, but if we don't really know, we really have to squint and think about it. We're probably avoiding the fact, knowing that it's been declining for 3 years, and we just don't want to know that fact.
I'll tell you what, let's do something a little bit different. Let's role play this out here real quick. You ask me, what was our attendance? I'm the pastor talking to you, Scott.
Okay.
Yeah. How's
attendance been the last few weeks?
Oh yeah. Hold on. I get this week's report right here. Yeah, we were 175 this Sunday.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
If you're not watching on the YouTube, I picked up a piece of paper from my desk. This is our explanation for the visually
get this.
Not connected people. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that would be so much better. All right. So we want to help you. I guess we've already given away one thing you'd want to have on your dashboard, but attendance isn't the only thing you'd want to have on your dashboard. Before we hop into, 7 things we think should be on a dashboard every week?
Looks like 7 and a bonus. Yeah.
7 and a bonus. And we'll go through them pretty quickly. Who should make this? When should you get it? Give me some of that information, AJ. Lay it on me.
Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, this could be a piece of paper printed out for you. That would probably be helpful. Maybe if you're a techie, you're like, I don't know, and I want to save the trees, then this could be a PDF you see on your computer. It could be a report that gets generated out of your church management software, a spreadsheet, so any of that's acceptable. Okay. As long as the good information is in there. Yeah. Who develops it? Well, it probably, if you have an admin, secretary, executive pastor, associate pastor, there's a variety of people depending on the size of your church and your staff. Could even be information that was provided by a variety of people, but then someone was able to
aggregate that.
Yeah, aggregate the information. And when should this be in pastor's hand? Well, I don't know. Maybe he's off on Mondays. I would say Tuesday would be a great day then, the first day that he's back in the office.
Before staff meeting would be my recommendation. If you have a staff,
probably by Wednesday, is when this needs to be.
Whenever your staff meeting is, have it before staff meeting, because like your teaser said, good information leads to good decision making.
Yeah.
And so you've got that information, then there can be some action items, especially given what some of our things are on our dashboard. There can be some action items that get executed in staff meeting as a result of the information in that dashboard.
Yeah.
So
there you go. All right. So okay. The contents of a report. Number one, we're talking about this Sunday adult worship attendance. Now, maybe you don't count only adults. Maybe however your church is set up. If you're just getting who's totally in the room, if kids or teenagers or whatever. I would just say like the worship. The more important thing is that you're consistent. Count the same way every week. Yeah.
You may also want to, this is maybe a sub point, divide out how many of the people in the room were there, like in attendance, and how many people that were in the room were volunteers. Okay. Like we had 150 people in the room, 15 of which were volunteers. They were in the band. It was the pastor. It was, so we really had 135 people sitting in rows.
Yeah. This isn't supposed to be like fully today's topic, but I have had questions in the past of how do various churches go about counting people? How do they figure out actually who's there? And so, there's a variety of ways of doing that. I guess I could throw out a few ideas. Maybe Scott, you'll have some too. Tell you what, I used to attend, a different church. I still attend a fairly large church. I used to attend a church that was also large. They had GoPros set up or digital cameras up like a catwalk and would snap a picture. I think they had a couple of them to capture the room. They would snap a picture. That way they could just zoom in on the picture and actually count people. So that was one way to capture a larger number of people. If your church is fairly full, then maybe you only got to count empty seats. So that's another way. I've seen people attempt to do some kind of a count when folks are entering the worship service space. But then, the people that are going back out and back in, that might be challenging. Ushers, great way. They're moving around the room. Be responsible.
The typical way.
The
typical way is to put one usher,
section.
Someone who's good at counting, which sounds like that's a pretty basic skill, but I'm one of these people where I start counting. I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait, did I say 8 already? I lose track of where I'm at. So you can get people one of those clickers, like you see at the theme parks or whatever, where they're clicking how many people are walking in, click, 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 click. Yeah. Best practice would be to wait till like 15 minutes after the service has started, so that you catch any stragglers. Yeah, and you could just put an usher whose job it is to just kind of get a good vantage point and kind of look. Yeah,
and don't put barcodes on people. That's
don't scan.
That's not a good one. Yeah, don't scan them. So
yeah, the pictures. If it's a really big room, taking a picture, that's a good idea. I think the normative size church, you could probably just have an usher whose job it is to take the count.
Yeah, there you go. That's number one, counting the adult or just your worship service attendance.
The worship service,
important component on the dashboard report. All right, number 2, Scott, children's ministry attendance.
Yeah, how many kids? If you're doing, you should. I really hope you're doing digital check-in at this point. A lot of churches, some churches aren't. Most churches are. If you aren't, do it, because this makes it really easy. And you can just run the report. Whatever system you're using for check-in should be able to just run the report for you. How many kids were there? So you don't have to. You don't have to go get rolls like back when I was a kid. You had to. There was a class roll for each class or whatever. And you can remove all that nonsense. Just if you got a check-in system, you're good to go.
Right. And bonus tip on here, this is 2022. This is kind of what people would be expecting maybe if they visit your church as a guest. Parents like to see this. It adds an element of security. You know who my kid is. You know that they're connected to me. You're not going to give them away to strangers that offer them candy. So get this done, guys. Come on. All right. Number 3, tracking the offering for the week. not
Yep.
not a list of names and how much they gave, simply an overall amount.
Right. Yeah, it's just good to know, you know what, it's good from a cash flow perspective. So we'll get to this later, but just as a former youth ministry person, when say the camp deposit has to go out and the camp deposit's going to be $15,000, you want to be sure that you're got enough cash flow to hit that deposit expense. Even though you're going to get the revenue from kids registrations later, that whole amount, 15,000, has to go out, in June. And if June's a bad month on the giving side, you just want to be sure you move money around. Like, oh, we got to take some money out of savings to be sure we have whatever we need in the checking and the payroll. And it sounds nuts. Like, these things happen where churches don't manage the cash flow correctly, and then the payroll check doesn't clear. That's not good. So you want to be sure. It's not that the church doesn't have money, they just didn't manage cash flow.
Yeah. Now, all of that's all super important information. It doesn't necessarily fall to the pastor's responsibility to be managing cash flow. He just needs to be aware of where
Right.
things
But if
work.
you saw a low number, if
Yeah.
okay, we typically have X number of dollars come in on a given Sunday. This week we had this number and it's a lot lower. That might be an indicator to you go, oh, I should check in with the financial secretary or whoever, the treasurer, to make sure that we aren't going to have some big expense that's going to come through. So it's just an indicator.
Sure.
That's the point of the dashboard, is like, oh, here's something that's noteworthy. I need to pay attention.
That's right. It's kind of the point of the dashboard, for you to be aware of things so that you can anticipate.
It's not going to give you nuance.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to. It's just supposed to give you like an indicator that something might be happening.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Number 4, super important, new guests, counting guests that we had. And this, of course, is a whole other topic about what to do with that, what kind of systems are effective, and all the ways that you could do this. But you definitely need to be aware of the number of guests that were there on Sunday.
Yeah, you have 2 key sources of this information. You might have additional ones, but the 2 key ones, main ones, are going to be some sort of connection card that you might have, whatever your version of that is, something that someone fills out either online or, that they fill out in person on a piece of paper that they put in the offering plate or box or whatever. That's one. The other one is children's ministry check-in. So new people who have kids who show up, who, because you're using your digital check-in system, they have to fill out information. So you go, okay, we have this new family. They may not have filled out a Connect card, but you got their information because they registered their kid. So those are your 2 key sources. And so just having this overall number, even, AJ, like, okay, or you can start to track a trend. And maybe on your dashboard, you have your admin will do a nice job of kind of showing you maybe the last 90 days or even that last 3 months of Sundays. Here's the number of new guests we have. Is that a trend line going up? Is that trend line going down? Is it staying static?
Mm-hmm.
That's all information that you can use to go, why are we not having as many guests?
Yeah, right. Or, do we get 5 guests a week, but our overall attendance is flat? How come it's not cumulative that we gain 5?
Right. What are we doing?
They're not coming back again. So, yeah.
So there's a pastoral element to this, because you want to be sure that you're doing a good job following up, which we're going to get to in a second, with people who are new. Mm-hmm. But there's also a data point that's relevant to go, what is this trend? We had this number of new people attend this week. How does that compare, to 3 months ago? Or how does this compare to the same time last year, a year over year?
Yeah, being able to go deeper on the data on any of these is a super great option to have. But at least, even if you're not set up technologically to do that, then this is a good start.
I mean, Moses, you could do in Excel.
Yeah.
Or like a Google Sheet. Like, you don't have to have fancy tech. You just have to input information.
Yeah. Okay, so moving now down to number 5. This is kind of a sub point almost of the previous one on counting guests, but this is guest follow-up process. Maybe that's even a new idea for some of you. And we talk, a lot about this with churches, is having a process for following up with guests. And no, we don't mean that they got a postcard that had the pastor's name on it the following week. That's not a process. That's a reaction.
It's an
So
event,
yeah,
one-time thing. Yeah.
a process takes people on a journey to something. And so you should have a goal for what you want to have happen with a guest, and a series of steps along the way to help get them there. So being able to track that, having a dashboard piece that shows, you refer to this maybe as a pipeline. How many people, how many guests are in the pipeline towards becoming a member of the church, or what we would consider a regular attender, or just leading up to something that you're inviting them to. This is good information to have.
Yeah, you want to start trying to identify, and again, this is nuance that you're not going to get from a dashboard. But if you're reading the dashboard properly and paying attention, this will be an indicator to you. But you want to start trying to figure out, where are people falling off? Like, where in that follow-up process are we losing people? So AJ, you went back to saying, hey, we're averaging 5 guests a week, but our overall number isn't going up. That would then go, okay, well, where then in our follow-up process are we losing people?
Yeah.
What point are they dropping out and not coming back? So having an understanding of how many people are in the different steps of that queue would give you an indication maybe of where you need to do some work. When we're losing people when we get to this step in the process, okay, we maybe need to take a look at that and fix it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Another important count to be managing is your discipleship attendance. So whatever form that takes in your church, Sunday school, small groups, some other thing that you ask people to do, and there should be a pretty major ministry around this, then we need to know how many people are engaged in that. What was going on with that on any particular Sunday?
Yeah. Yep. So a couple of different things you might want to track within this category would be just whatever that raw number is. We had 60 people attend a Sunday school class or a group or whatever it is that you have. You would want to maybe track what that percentage is as it relates to your overall Sunday worship attendance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not going to be static. You might, if your worship attendance is increasing, but your raw number of people engaged in a group is staying static, then your percentage as relative to your worship attendance, that's going to go down. That's going to be an indicator to you, oh, we need to do a better job of moving people out of the Sunday morning gathering into groups. So that, that's why the percentage is helpful. The raw number is good, but the percentage is helpful. And then also, how many people are absent? What percentage of people who are registered for a group aren't showing up? And if that number, you're going to have some normal fluctuation where people don't attend every week. They maybe attend twice a month or 3 times a month instead of every week. But if you start to maybe even identify who are those people, or if absentee percentage goes up a lot, that's an indicator. Are our groups terrible, or do we need to reevaluate our strategy? So again, it's not going to give you a lot of detail, but a dashboard does not designed to give you detail. It's supposed to just create an awareness of what's happening.
Yeah, that's good. All right, number 7, maybe something people might not think about, but let's include also anything that might have made a particular Sunday unique. Bad weather, blackout, Mother's Day, things that are any non-normal things that might have affected attendance up or down would be helpful to know and have a historical record on as well. If you're like us, hey, we were working on some data points this morning, looking at some trend lines for some things that we track, and we saw something from a year ago. We're like, what was that? What was the event that caused that? Was this an anomaly in the data? And so this is the kind of situation that 6 months or a year later, you're like, golly, that one Sunday was really bad, and then somebody will go, yeah, that was the blizzard, remember? So
right.
That's helpful.
Yeah, it would really be helpful to, if you are using some sort of either like a church management software, or you're using even like a spreadsheet, if you would be consistent and use consistent language like rain or snow versus rainy snowy, because then you have like a term that you could categorize and go like, I want to identify all of the weeks with snow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so then you isolate those and go, oh, on average, when it snows, we have a 30% decrease or whatever. Or, we have the last 5 years of Mother's Days. And here's on average, we see X percent increase or decrease or whatever. So if you can use some consistent language, then you can create tags that you can run some other kinds of reports in a different context.
Yep. Okay. That was our top 7. We just run through them: adult worship service attendance or worship service attendance in general, children's ministry attendance, the overall offering amount, new guest tracking, guest follow-up process, number of guests within your follow-up process, discipleship, ministry attendance, whatever you do in your church, having weather and special events noted, and then kind of a little bonus one, also having on a monthly basis, not on a weekly basis, but maybe on the first or last report of the month, a little budget update, percentage of revenue in for the year versus spending, just to kind of keep your finger on that pulse as well.
Yeah. So for that bonus, just your finance team probably is already wanting something like this. They're probably already getting something like this. Again, shocked at the number of pastors who they aren't seeing it. They don't know. The finance team knows, but the pastor doesn't know. And a lot of pastors are like, I don't want to know. Like, I don't want to be involved in all that. I don't want to know where we're at on the budget percentage or whatever. I got bad news for you. Or good news, I guess, depending on your perspective. You're the leader. You should know.
Yeah.
There might be some financial things you don't know, like who gives what and so on. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just aggregate numbers, money in, money out. Where are we at in, what percentage has the children's ministry spent of their budget? Oh, they spent 70% of their budget, but we're only 50% of the way through the year. That might be a problem, or maybe it's not a problem. I don't know. It'd be worth a conversation. Like these are all things that you should know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're again, this could drag on or be a whole other topic, but your position on what you know about finance, it should have some balance to it. You shouldn't be in the weeds on every detail, and you shouldn't be completely at arm's length on that. And we've met people in both camps. Just be down the middle a little bit. You need to be aware you are leading.
It tends to be an extreme.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of pastors are on the extreme of, I don't know.
Yeah, right. This is, again, we started this off by talking about being able to make good decisions based on good information. And so if you have no clue what's ever happening, maybe, on the one side of that is, when then do you know when to be, talking about biblical giving and stewardship? And, these are practical
I'll tell
things.
You when, only when it's a crisis. That's when it happens.
Right.
No, we're way short.
Yeah.
And then you're doing it in a panic versus being able to identify a trend early and handle it differently.
Right.
So there's value in knowing in advance. Yeah.
Quick little soapbox moment there from your friendly Malphurs Group guides.
Church consultants, yeah.
All right. Hey, quick shout out to our friends from down under at Growing Healthier Churches, because they have developed really great companion software to some church management systems that will give you some really cool dashboard numbers
that just happen automatically.
Most or all of what we talked about today. So
it works right now, I believe, with Planning Center and with Elvanto / Tithely. That's the same product, but under different names. If you've got one of those two, and it's free, or there's a version of it that's free. They may have some paid upgrades. Growing Healthier Churches, just Google it. You'll find it. It's great. We've had them on the podcast. We love what they're doing. Supported 1,000%. You should check it out.
Yeah. Link in this week's show notes over to them as well, which you can find over at malphursgroup.com/153. This was episode 153 of the Church Revitalization Podcast. And well, you know what? I mentioned, hey, they're from Australia. That's super cool because we are networking and supporting churches and ministries all over the world. That's what we do in addition to the month in and month out of being with churches and leaders right here in the good old USA. So our heart is for the church worldwide. And if you would like to support us in that, and we sure would love you to do that, either as an individual or as a part of your church's mission budget, which you should be aware of what's happening there.
What's happening with the mission budget? Yeah.
Then come see us over at malphursgroup.com/donate and get some more information about that. I'd love to have a conversation with you about how you could partner with us to help us do more ministry globally. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again next week.